Out here, if you're doing nothing, you're doing everything right. Though on a cruise with Norwegian, even if you're doing nothing, you're still basking in the warm sun, enjoying the peaceful ocean waves. You're breathing. Don't forget about breathing. Definitely need to be breathing. So you get to do nothing, or everything, but you still need to be breathing. It's like really important.
Experience the difference with cruises to Alaska, the Caribbean, and Europe. Norwegian Cruise Line. It's different out here. Visit ncl.com, call your travel advisor, or 1-888-NCL-CRUISE. Norwegian Cruise Line ships registry the Bahamas and USA.
And away we go, episode 1345 of the Al Galdi podcast. It is Thursday, June 11th, 2026, the day after the Kansas City Chiefs on Wednesday afternoon announced having signed their QB1, Patrick Mahomes, to a contract extension that, per reports, ties him to the Chiefs through the 2033 season at a value of, you ready for this, $504.75 million. First NFL contract valued at over $500 million. Washington Commanders QB1 Jayden Daniels, he becomes contract extension eligible next offseason. We'll see what he does this coming season. Hopefully he has a great season, and if he does, what might we be talking about regarding an extension for him next offseason? Hello and welcome to this Thursday installment of the Al Galdi podcast. Washington Commanders head coach Dan Quinn, he, during his pre-OTA practice press conference this past Tuesday morning, said this about 2026 Washington Commanders training camp, quote, "I do fully expect this to be our most competitive camp that we've had going into year three," end quote. Year three meaning year three of Quinn as Washington head coach. But was him saying this, in effect, him conceding that the training camp that he ran last year was too soft? Next segment, discussion of that. End of multiple new wrinkles at OTA practice, including GoPro cameras on the helmets of players, especially quarterbacks. The following segment, analysis of Washington's defensive backs off comments from Quinn and defensive coordinator Daronte Jones during their pre-OTA practice press conferences on Tuesday morning. And the segment after that, I'll speak with a longtime coworker and friend, Steve Solomon, host of the Steve Solomon Show on Patreon. He's going to join us for a quick segment to tell us about him running for Montgomery County Council at large. And Steve has a hot take for us on why Washington should not acquire San Francisco 49ers receiver Brandon Ayuk. And also on the show, I'll talk Washington Nationals and Baltimore Orioles. What a loss for the Nats. They concluded a 4-2 trip out west with a horrendous loss, an 11-10 walk-off loss at the San Francisco Giants on Wednesday, denying the Nats a 3-game sweep. The Nats in this game blew a 9-1 eighth-inning lead and a 10-6 ninth-inning lead, lost on a walk-off grand slam. Terrible ending to an otherwise good road trip. Again, 4-2 trip out west. The O's, they snapped a 4-game losing streak with a 7-2 win over the Seattle Mariners at Oriole Park at Camden Yards on Wednesday evening. I'll get into that. And this curious situation between O's catcher Samuel Basallo and O's manager Craig Albernaz. You can hit me up on X at Al Galdi. You can email me the Al Galdi podcast at yahoo.com. And in our quest for 2,000 ratings of the podcast, if you want Apple Podcasts, give the podcast a 5-star rating. On the podcast, we'll read whatever you write in writing a review of the podcast. But the review can include you saying something about sports. You don't just have to write about the podcast. Feedback on whether Washington should acquire Brandon Ayuk from Keith Hoffman on X, writes Keith. The main discussion among my friends about Ayuk is, number one, we just assume that he will be on our team at some point. Number two, you better pay him low risk because he's a head case. Thank you for that, Keith. I agree, and I believe that General Manager Adam Peters agrees. I do think that Washington is going to acquire Ayuk and is going to get him on a low-risk, high-upside contract, either as an unrestricted free agent off being released or as a low-cost trade acquisition with whom Washington reworks his contract. Washington publicly has said nothing about whether it's interested in Ayuk, but consider the following two items. A, one of the top national NFL insiders, Ian Rappaport of NFL Network, he on multiple occasions has said that Washington wants Ayuk. B, if Washington didn't want Ayuk, truly had no interest in Ayuk, the team could leak something to someone like Rappaport along the lines of a source close to the situation says Washington has no interest in Ayuk. But we've had nothing like that. Adam Peters, if he wanted to, could shut down all of this Ayuk to Washington talk by leaking to reporters that Washington doesn't want Ayuk, but Peters has not done that. Now, I have considered this. It is possible that Peters does not want Ayuk, but has it leaked to the media that Washington doesn't want Ayuk because doing so would lessen Washington's leverage with receiver Stephon Diggs, who's an unrestricted free agent. We know that Peters is a gangsta in negotiations, especially with receivers. And so if Peters wants Diggs and not Ayuk, making it known that the team doesn't want Ayuk would lessen the team's leverage with Diggs. But my guess is that Peters does want Ayuk. We'll see. The proof will be in what Washington does. Hey, thank you to John Jeffries and the rest of the crew of BGObsession.com for having me on a recent installment of the BGO Blind Pig podcast. The episode is out on YouTube. We had a lot of fun talking Washington Commanders, so you likely have heard me talk about BGObsession.com and the BGO Blind Pig podcast for a while now. Great supporters of this podcast. BGO Blind Pig is the official podcast of BGObsession.com, which is a terrific Washington Commanders forum. Anyone can join. And BGO Blind Pig essentially is the forum in podcast form, a roundtable discussion about the Washington Commanders. It's like you and a bunch of your buddies who are Washington fans are hanging out and talking about the team. The conversation is smart and fun and respectful. You can find the BGO Blind Pig podcast on YouTube and on any major podcast provider. Make BGObsession.com the home for your burgundy and gold obsession, and make the BGO Blind Pig podcast part of your Washington Commanders podcast rotation. There were multiple reasons for why the Washington Commanders went 5-12 in the NFL's 2025 regular season. The biggest reason was the team getting massacred by injury, but that was not the only reason for the disappointing season. Something that I found especially bothersome was the extent to which Washington got beat in games. Washington, for the 2025 regular season, had the sixth worst point differential in the NFL, minus 95. We all get the injuries, but the injuries don't excuse the team routinely getting blown out. What you always want from your team, even in an injury-ravaged season, is for the team to be a tough out. That when the team loses, it does so in a competitive way. Well, Washington last season so often was not competitive. When it comes to why that was the case, something that has come up is that head coach Dan Quinn last summer ran a soft training camp. Now, it was hard to know in the moment whether the team's 2025 training camp was soft. And remember, the team for last season had a lot of older players, so running some, brutal camp wouldn't have made much sense. But in hindsight, yeah, it's not ridiculous to say that Quinn last summer ran a soft training camp. An NFL team is limited to a maximum of 16 fully padded practices during training camp. Washington, during its 2025 training camp, did not come close to having 16 fully padded practices. Also, people like Commanders insider Nikki Javala of The Athletic have noted that there seemed to be a lack of intensity at the team's training camp last summer. She talked about this on this podcast, episode 1205, which came out this past November 24th. Here was that exchange. Something that you noted during 2025 Commanders training camp was that the vibe was off. And that now seems very prescient given what has happened this season. What did you notice with the team's vibe during camp?
Yeah, it is. I don't want to say there wasn't a lack of focus. They were definitely focused. It was not an intense training camp by any means. And I know 2024 was not super intense. I mean, it's sort of all relative compared to like the Eric Bieniemy season where they were pretty much running to the ground going into the game or going into the season. And, that was a whole different extreme. But this one felt almost, I don't want to say too lax because I know there's a method to everything they do and I'm just a bystander. What the heck do I know? Right. But there was very little hitting. I know that it's restricted anyway, but they didn't come close to the maximum allowed full contact practices. It just felt super light to the point where you're like, man, are they going to be okay if they get hit? Are they prepared? So that was one of the things. And then, Terry being out, that whole saga it was strange. Um, and I don't know that anybody knew the true story. I think that's only, what happened between Terry and Adam Peters. Not that there's anything like more salacious than but what's been reported, but there were obviously, as with any negotiation, there's two sides. And, it was just a weird time, when he would come back out and sign autographs with fans after the other players had worked out and were going in. It was just there's like a disconnect there. So there was that, and I just feel like they didn't have the depth at positions that they had even before. I mean, I thought the receiving core, though they added Debo, I thought they were thinner than they were when they had Alameda and Diami, and not that those players were exceptional receivers, but they provided depth and often a reliability that they've been lacking within that group. So that was sort of all of it. It was mostly on the offense. I didn't see the defense, falling out quite like it has. But it definitely didn't feel like it did in 2024 when you would see Jaden, you see the offense roll, and you're like, oh, wow, they might have something here. You didn't get that feeling.
Okay, so that was Nikki Zavala on this podcast this past November 24th, and now we have this. Dan Quinn, during his pre-OTA practice press conference this past Tuesday morning, said of 2026 Washington Commanders training camp, quote, "I do fully expect this to be our most competitive camp that we've had going into year 3, end quote. Quinn, during the presser, was asked about his philosophy regarding giving veterans days off during camp, given that the team now is younger and that the likes of linebacker Bobby Wagner, edge defender Von Miller, and tight end Zach Ertz are no longer on the team. This was Quinn's answer, and then you'll hear a follow-up exchange between Nikki Zavala and Quinn.
Yes. Yep. Spend a lot of time on that, and fortunately, the NFL also helps on like some of the player health and safety things of like ramp ups and what does that look like. But there will be less, for sure, just based on injury history and age. But I do fully expect this to be our most competitive camp that we've had, in going into year 3, and so. Those are good. That's when you're kind of pushing everybody to see where we can get to. So I'll be excited for that time. I'm not thinking there yet, but there is an element of like there's going to be some battles that you guys are going to be covering that it's not going to be decided after one day, and there's going to be times, like we're going to work our way all the way through it.
Last one is the running backs group one of those? I mean,
that is one. Yeah, and I've been pleased with like the additions that we've had. So seeing Rashad out of the backfield catching it, he was on the return game the other week. He's got great hands. So what does he add into it on some third downs? What is Katron and Robert and Bill, like how do we develop those guys? So that is, on offense specifically, I felt like at running back and tight end and receiver, man, there's a lot of mixing around and going, and so different personnel groups. So let's find what the guys can do their best and then see how we can feature that.
Okay, so Dan Quinn on 2026 Washington Commanders training camp, quote, "I do fully expect this to be our most competitive camp that we've had going into year 3, end quote. Competitive doesn't literally mean the same thing as hard or tough, but a head coach in the modern NFL almost certainly is not just going to come out and say that he plans on running a harder or tougher training camp than he ran the previous year. Competitive can be a nice, more pleasant, more acceptable way of saying hard or tough. And Quinn saying, quote, "I do fully expect this to be our most competitive camp that we've had going into year 3, end quote. I don't just take that as coach speak. I take that as him saying, yeah, our 2026 training camp is going to be challenging for these guys. And you got to wonder if that is a tacit admission that his 2025 training camp was not challenging enough for his players. Now, Washington did begin the 2025 regular season 3-2. It's not like the team got off to some wretched start, which can be a sign of a soft training camp. But the team went from 3-2 to 3-10. 8 consecutive losses as the injuries piled up, and so many of those losses were embarrassing losses. Don't forget about the 4-game stretch from week 7 through 10. The 44-22 loss at the Dallas Cowboys last October 19th. The 28-7 loss at the Kansas City Chiefs on Monday Night Football last October 27th. The 38-14 loss to the Seattle Seahawks at Northwest Stadium on Sunday Night Football last November 2nd. The 44-22 loss to the Detroit Lions at Northwest Stadium last November 9th. 4 consecutive blowout losses as part of that 8-game losing streak as Washington's season unraveled. The team during this stretch absolutely came off as being soft and not battle-tested. It was painful to see our team wilt as it did. Dan Quinn this past Tuesday morning, quote, "I do fully expect this to be our most competitive camp that we've had going into year 3, end quote. Something to keep in mind as we are now about a month and a half away from the start of 2026 Washington Commanders training camp. Also regarding some new approaches for Washington this year is the usage of these GoPro cameras. So Washington, during recent OTA practices, has been having some players, including quarterbacks, wear GoPro cameras. An interesting, innovative thing to do. And this is the time to try something like this, right? OTAs. So we on Tuesday morning had this exchange between John Duran of WUSA 9 and Dan Quinn.
Dan, last week we saw quarterbacks wearing cameras on their helmets. I don't know if they're going to keep that up today and beyond, but whose idea was that, and how does that change their film set?
Yeah, so the GoPros came from David, and it's definitely gives insight. There's also volume on that, and so hearing that microphone of what it could sound like in a huddle, what does the check look like? So there's definitely advantages. It's not as effective for throws like deeper down the field, so we're still exploring with it. But it gives another perspective and how to hear things. And so as a coach, especially when you're on the sideline, hearing that type of communication back and forth, if it was just the video, that'd be good, but adding the sound with it, with the mic, I think that's another layer to it. So we'll continue to work with it now and through the next week, and then we can decide what days, how we want to work it. But I'm encouraged by it so far. When I first saw it, I didn't know how I'd feel. Like, it's going to make me seasick, like up and down and all over the place. And I think some positions it might be that, if you're a safety and you're looking around all the time. But at that position specifically, I think there's advantages to doing it.
So Dan Quinn revealing that the idea to have quarterbacks wear GoPro cameras during OTAs came from offensive coordinator David Blau. So a forward-thinking idea from Blau. Other NFL teams have used GoPro cameras for quarterbacks in practices. So it's not like Blau is the first person with this idea, but good to see Washington implement this. And Quinn is big on the footage from the GoPro cameras being valuable both in terms of video and audio. We on Tuesday morning had this exchange between Commanders insider John Keim of ESPN and Quinn.
What have you learned being able to watch some of that so far?
Well, it certainly gives you like your first read, like of where somebody is looking. Now, as a coach, all right, we see a stripe on their helmet. Where are they going? How quickly they get off something? So those are like the first thing. But again, I do like the mic'd up part of that. I've done that before with players into practice. This is another side of that. Who's communicating? How are they communicating it? It's more effective in the passing game on like shorter and intermediate routes, it feels like, from a camera. So let's see where we can take it. But there's definitely some value to it.
Yeah, and something else regarding some new approaches for Washington this year is that the team during Tuesday's OTA practice had rugby coaches helping out Washington in terms of tackling. So the team is trying some new things. Hey, please consider subscribing to this podcast. If you're not already doing that, subscribing to the podcast costs nothing. Make sure that you never miss an episode and helps out the podcast a lot. And if you're already subscribing, thank you. Look, choosing life insurance is tricky. Heck, life insurance as a topic can be uncomfortable, but Ethos makes getting life insurance fast and easy 100% online. You can get a quote in seconds, apply in minutes, and get same-day coverage. There's no medical exam. You just answer a few simple health questions. You can get up to $3 million in coverage. Some policies are as low as $30 a month. You'll get your lowest rate from Ethos' network of trusted carriers. And know this, Ethos has a rating of 4.8 out of 5 stars on Trustpilot with over 4,000 reviews. Take 10 minutes today to get covered with life insurance through Ethos. Get your free quote at ethos.com/Al Galdi. That's ethos.com/Al Galdi. Ethos.com/Al Galdi. Application times may vary. Rates may vary.
Quick question for parents. When was your child's last eye exam? Myopia, or nearsightedness, is becoming more common in kids, and it's not just about needing stronger glasses. If myopia continues to progress untreated, it may increase the risk of more serious vision complications later in life. The good news? An eye doctor can help identify myopia early and recommend options designed to help manage it over time. One of those options is Essilor Stellest lenses. Stellest lenses are designed specifically for children and are part of an approach to myopia management that corrects their vision while supporting eye health as their eyes continue to grow. They look like regular eyeglasses, but they're purpose-built for young wearers. Every child's vision is different, which is why starting with a professional eye exam matters. If you have concerns or even just questions, your eye doctor can guide you through what solution is best for your child. Clear vision today can help support your child's future, and it all starts with an eye exam. Visit Essilor.com to learn more about Stellest lenses and to find an Essilor expert eye care professional near you. That's ESSILOR.com.
So here's a question. Which NFL team has the longest active regular season defensive shutout drought? The answer, as you may already know, is Washington. Washington has not had a defensive shutout in a regular season game since having 3 defensive shutouts in September 1991. Yes, the Redskins in September 1991 pitched 3 shutouts, but this stat in so many ways captures the defensive struggles for our team for so long that it is our team, Washington, that has the longest active regular season defensive drought in the NFL. In terms of recent history, Washington's defense has been bad in each of the last 3 seasons, 2023 through 2025. The last good Washington defense was the 2022 defense. The team this offseason has done a lot to address the defense, but the bulk of the player acquisitions have been for the defensive front. The secondary, to me, remains a major question, and thus was a major topic during defensive coordinator Daronte Jones' pre-OTA practice press conference this past Tuesday morning. Washington's cornerback group, as we speak, is as follows: Trey Amos, Mikey Sainristil, Amik Robertson, Akello Witherspoon, Antonio Hamilton Sr., Trey Hawkins III, Darius Rush, Carlin Vigors, and Fred Davis II. Washington's safety group, as we speak, is as follows: Nick Cross, Will Harris, Quan Martin, Jeremy Reeves, Percy Butler, Tyler Owens, Quantrez Knight, Robert McDaniel, and Malik Spencer. The notable additions to the secondary this offseason are Amik Robertson, Akello Witherspoon, and Nick Cross. I have major questions about the secondary. I don't know how you don't. Specific to corner, so Trey Amos would appear to be the number 1 corner. He last season had a nice rookie season, but he's coming off a season-ending fractured fibula. Mikey Sainristil and Amik Robertson appear to be the numbers 2 and 3 corners in some order, but each guy is coming off a down 2025 season, and each guy is a smaller corner, although there are things to like about each guy too, including the competitiveness, toughness, and durability of each guy. This was Daronte Jones on Tuesday morning on Mikey Sainristil and Amik Robertson.
You know, people refer to them as being very similar, but they're different. They're similar in stature, but no, they're 2 different players, and they have different strengths, and our goal is to continue to use their strengths and kind of alleviate their weaknesses a little bit. But with Mikey's has ball history, you know, coming from Michigan and the things that he's done there, and he has inside-outside flex. Amik is a pit bull out there, as we know. He plays with a certain level of intensity, and so those guys, you see them in the meeting room, they mesh very well with one another. They're like 2 peas in a pod. And so that chemistry that they're building will help us grow and, again, utilize our versatility on the defensive side of the ball.
Washington took Mikey Sainristil in the 2nd round of the 2024 NFL Draft out of the University of Michigan. Washington, this past March 12th, announced having signed Amik Robertson as an unrestricted free agent. The contract per overthecap.com and spottrack.com is a 2-year, $15.02 million deal with $7.35 million fully guaranteed at signing. The 2026 season will be Robertson's age 28 season. He was taken by the Las Vegas Raiders in the 4th round of the 2020 NFL draft out of Louisiana Tech, spent his first 4 NFL seasons with the Raiders, then spent the 2024 and 2025 seasons with the Detroit Lions, off having signed with them as an unrestricted free agent in March 2024. Daronte Jones spent 5 of the last 6 seasons with the Minnesota Vikings, so he spent the last 2 seasons in the same division as Amik Robertson, the NFC North. More from Daronte Jones on Tuesday morning on Amik Robertson.
I've seen him twice a year the last couple of years at Detroit, and so just his grit. I watched him last year, maybe the year before. He was solo against Justin Jefferson. Anybody who have the confidence to do that and not blink is my type of guy, and that's the type of guy for the Washington Commanders. And so just that confidence level that he exudes, the temperament that he plays with, that's everything that we're looking for in terms of a Commanders.
Yeah, Amik Robertson is a competitor, is a dog-ass competitor, as head coach Dan Quinn likes to say.
This is a dog-ass competitor.
Yes, thank you, Dan. But Washington is counting on Mikey Sainristil and Amik Robertson having bounce-back seasons. We'll see. As for Trey Amos, how will he come back from the season-ending fractured fibula? He suffered that injury in Washington's 44-22 loss to the Detroit Lions at Northwest Stadium this past November 9th. Here was Daronte Jones on Tuesday morning on Trey Amos.
Trey has been attacking everything that we put in front of him, both mentally, physically, and so we're excited about where he is right now, and as he continues to grow to be an NFL football player and do the things we're asking him to do.
All right. Well, I am excited about Nick Cross. So Washington this past March 13th announced having signed Cross as an unrestricted free agent. The contract per overthecap.com and spottrack.com, a 2-year, $13 million deal with $6.05 million fully guaranteed at signing, a total bargain. He's entering just his age 25 season. He's a local, went to DeMatha Catholic High School in Hyattsville, Maryland, then went to the University of Maryland, played for the Terrapins for the 2019 through 2021 seasons, was taken by the Indianapolis Colts in the 3rd round of the 2022 NFL Draft. Stud athlete, 9.87 out of a possible 10 in Kentley Platty's relative athletic score metric, ranking number 12 out of 846 free safety prospects from 1987 through 2022. He has been productive across for the 2025 regular season per the NFL's Next Gen Stats, was tied with Las Vegas Raiders safety and former Commander safety Jeremy Chinn for number 1 among all NFL safeties in run stops, resulting in an unsuccessful offensive play at 33. And Cross has been durable. He, over his 4 NFL regular seasons, has played in 67 of a possible 68 games. Here was Dan Quinn during his pre-OTA practice press conference on Tuesday morning on Nick Cross.
Well, some of it you won't see yet. But there is a really physical style, a box style of play to him. He's got more speed maybe than even I thought, playing in the deep part of the fields. And so by the week, like our first week, we played almost all middle field coverages where we were featuring guys high and low. The last week, it's been more of the 2 high spaces. So we're also experimenting and learning what each of the guys can do. But I think I feel the speed, the quickness of somebody that's got that kind of size.
All right, and so what about Quan Morton this coming season? He is coming off a nightmare of a 2025 season. Keep this in mind. Quan Morton in Washington's season-ending 24-17 win at the Philadelphia Eagles this past January 4th played on just 9% of the Commanders' defensive snaps. A totally meaningless game for Washington. Quan Morton played on just 9% of the team's defensive snaps. He in the 2025 regular season had gotten benched in previous games, but he in that win at the Eagles got buried on the bench. This was Daronte Jones on Tuesday morning on what he thinks he has in Quan Morton.
Well, I think Quan has experience that he's shown so far. He has versatility from his background in college, and he's in a place where he's also attacking the new scheme, not just lining up in the field, also playing in the boundary as well. So as we continue to see what he does well within what we're asking him to do, I think, the sky's the limit for him.
Washington took Quan Morton in the 2nd round of the 2023 NFL Draft out of the University of Illinois. Quan Morton, a 2023 second-round pick. Mikey Sainristil, a 2024 second-round pick. Trey Amos, a 2025 second-round pick. How will each guy do this coming season? And then there's Will Harris. He's entering his age 31 season. Washington signed him as an unrestricted free agent in March 2025. He was on the reserve/injured list from last September 22nd to last November 9th. This due to a fractured fibula that he suffered in Washington's 41-24 win over the Las Vegas Raiders at Northwest Stadium on September 21st, but did end up playing in 6 games in his return. We on Tuesday morning had this back and forth between Commanders insider Nikki Javala of The Athletic and Daronte Jones.
Will Harris, what does he bring to the safety club?
Will is one of our most veteran players in the back end. He's coming off of that injury, as you know. I know he came back a little bit last year. But Will brings a different dynamic because he's seen a lot of football. And so, for him, at the end of the day, I've seen a lot of routes, concepts. For me, it's more so getting the terminology down. That's going to be the biggest thing for most guys, just the terminology. Because, this staff, this defense is we got some experience out there. I know we're talking about young and physical and young and fast, but there are some guys on that football field that has played a lot of games, and so we want to use that.
And when you talk about the terminology, is the terminology, how much of it is new, like stuff that you've brought, that you've wanted to install, and how much of it is stuff that you take from others?
Well, that to me, that the terminology, whether it's mine or whoever, it's all one, and so it's our commander's terminology now, is what it is. And so when you do that, it's if you're making a dish, you're pulling from different spices, different things, and different categories, and so that's all we're doing. So you're pulling from my experiences with terminology or other places I've been at, and you just come to find out, what, here is different, and the terminology here is our own terminology. And so we call things differently than I've called anywhere else. That's because I want our guys to have ownership of our own terminology.
Well, remember, the expertise of Daronte Jones is the secondary. Jones was the Vikings defensive backs coach for the 2020 and 2022 seasons, was the Vikings defensive passing game coordinator / defensive backs coach for the 2023 through 2025 seasons. He knows defensive backs well, but then again, so did Washington's last defensive coordinator, Joe Witt Jr., an extensive background for him with defensive backs, and his time as Washington defensive coordinator did not go so well. Hey, whatever big event that you're planning, a wedding, a party, whatever, consider using a great sponsor of this podcast, Catering by Uptown. Visit cateringbyuptown.com and make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you. Catering by Uptown is outstanding. It is a family business. It is run by the Pereiras, who are great Washington Commanders fans. Catering by Uptown is committed to meeting your every need with elegance and precision. Catering by Uptown takes care of every detail so that you can enjoy your event. And Catering by Uptown's specialty is weddings. Get excellent service at an affordable price. In fact, if you visit cateringbyuptown.com and click on venues, you can check out Catering by Uptown's premier wedding venues. Visit cateringbyuptown.com and make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you. That's cateringbyuptown.com and make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you. It is a pleasure to welcome to the Al Galdi podcast Steve Solomon, who now is in podcasting, including hosting the Steve Solomon Show on Patreon, and he now is in politics as he is running for Montgomery County Council at large. Steve is a lifelong resident of Montgomery County, Maryland. His website is votestevesolomon.com. You can follow him on X at Steve Solomon. I met Steve in 2001, so we've known each other for 25 years. We worked together in radio for 20 years, 2001 to 2021. We, for that entire time, worked together at what is now the Team 980, and we, for a good part of that time, worked together in national radio on the Steve Zabin Show for Fox Sports Radio, Sporting News Radio, and Yahoo Sports Radio, as I did updates on the show and solidly produced the show. And yeah, he is running for Montgomery County Council at large. Asked if he could come on this podcast to speak for a few minutes about what he's doing. I said, sure. Hey, Steve, how are you?
Al, what's up, buddy? We see each other occasionally as we frequent Zabe's podcast together or things like that. And yeah, it was the radio business. We sat across from each other in the old bullpen at Rockville Pike for many, many years. One of my favorite guys, Al Galdi. So I miss you, buddy. I loved working with you every day. We had a fun time with Zabe and Scott and Andy and Doc, and now we're all podcasters, but we're still doing well. And yeah, I've been doing that for a while. Doing my own like you, but not nearly as successful. On Patreon, the Steve Solomon Show, I do the one with Scott Lynn Murray Solly without Murray anymore, that you voiced the beginning of, which you gave us 10 years ago. We still use, and Doc and I are still together. The Doc Walker podcast on Patreon. So a nickel at a time. That's how I make my living. There's a lot of podcasters do, but yeah, also running for county council. I gave it a shot in 18, in 22, and now third time's the charm, Al. So Montgomery County listeners, I know you got a lot of them here on the podcast, and I hope to earn your vote for county council at large. Happy to talk issues, Al, but I don't want to bore people with politics, because when I asked you to come on, I'm like, I know people don't want to hear politics. They hear enough of that crap other places. So happy to talk sports and push a little bit about my issues that I why the heck I'm running to begin with.
Well, how about this? Give us the elevator pitch for Steve Solomon for Montgomery County Council at large. I know that you care a lot about Montgomery County. How would you sell yourself to someone who doesn't know you on an elevator ride, say back at the old building on Rockville Pike?
Well, the first thing is about if there are 1% of people who know me from the radio, I'm like, yes, I've got their vote. So I've got those people. It's the 98% who've never heard of me before, who've never listened to sports talk radio or know who I am. Andy who? Steve who? Al who? I don't know. But I tell them the same spiel. I'm a lifelong resident of the county. I'm a son of working class immigrants. I grew up working class, middle class. I'm still middle class. And I just want to do some things to help the county out. I think we're not doing as well as we used to. You grew up here. I grew up here. This was the place where schools were great, where government workers all came to get jobs, where housing was plentiful, where businesses grew. And it's not the same anymore. We're still doing great. We're still a wealthy county, but I think we can do better. And that's why I've been running a couple times now. We need to grow business in this county. We need to make it easier for small businesses to succeed. We have the hardest permitting and inspections in the DMV area, so we're driving businesses away. We can't do that. I want to bring in more businesses, gives us more money for all the things we love, the roads, hospitals, libraries, parks that we all enjoy with our kids, our schools, which Al has 2 children in, soon to be MCPS. We want to make sure those are fully funded. It is not this year. They've in fact had to cut jobs at MCPS. I don't want that to happen. So that's why I'm running. Middle-class fellow with some middle-class ideas trying to help the county I grew up in, Al.
Very good. VoteSteveSolomon.com for more information. Let us talk some sports. Our Washington Commanders potentially acquiring San Francisco 49ers receiver Brandon Ayuk. Does the Steve Solomon platform include him being for or against Washington getting Ayuk?
I would rather have them sign me to play wide receiver for $30 million a year than Ayuk. He's past his prime, I think. His best years are probably behind him. He's obviously a diva. And, it's okay to be a diva wide receiver if you're, I don't know, CeeDee Lamb, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jackson Smith and Jigba. Not that those guys are. Maybe CeeDee Lamb. But even Pickens. Pickens is the ultimate diva wide receiver. He's great. You better catch 100 balls and 1,500 yards and 10 touchdowns a year. Ayuk does none of those. And he did he looked promising in his first few years in San Francisco. First round pick, looked pretty good. Then he got a 4-year, $120 million deal. Got hurt, didn't play last year. He's 28. Are we really going to get and he's a pain in the ass, right? That's, I don't see the good, the good receivers who stay quiet posting on Instagram while walking about complaining about this and that, BA this, BA. Come on, what are you doing? He's just okay. And that's the thing. And he's made $60 million the last 2 years and caught 25 balls. So him complaining about time's up to pay the bill? Really? They've paid the bill. They overpaid you the last 2 years, and now you want more? And he wants to come here? Please, I'd rather have Stephon Diggs. If we're going to have a pain in the ass diva, have a guy who's just, been a Super Bowl contender and a really game changer like him. So I say no to Ayuk. We tried it with Debo, worked out, right? Ex-49ers receiver, came here. I was a little skeptical, and I'd rather have him back than Ayuk.
It's funny, Deebo Samuel, who most agree, myself included, was good for Washington last season. He does remain available. He remains an unrestricted free agent, but Washington doesn't seem to have much interest in him. The more cutthroat industry, podcasting / radio or politics?
Well, both are, Alan. As someone who's failed at both numerous times now, I think, well, it's funny because anyone can do anything. Anyone can start a podcast. Anyone can run for office, as proven by me. It's being successful at those things that are tough. And kudos to you, my friend, for taking a firing from radio, as we all have, and building it into a nice podcast empire with this and Nat's Chat. And I've tried to do the same. I was like, well, we don't have to work for other people, right? That's the best thing about this. Even though it's a little less money, I don't have to go sit in some office, drive downtown, work for some corporation that's losing billions of dollars. You know what radio does now, Al? They lose money. You look at every big radio company, they're firing people, they're talking mergers. I think it's good that we're out right now. Podcasting's great. You can do it whenever you want. I know you're an early riser. You hit the gym and hit the skinless chicken early so you can get the podcasting done. And politics, it's even locally, it's a little dirty. I like it because I know a lot of the people, and a lot of them are good, decent people. And though I come across as kind of a jackass and a funny guy, I try to do good for the people in Montgomery County, and a lot of people are. So that's why I'm doing it. If it doesn't work out, I'll still be doing this. And if it does, I'll still be doing this, but not as much, because it's a full-time job serving the people of Montgomery County, including the Galdi family and your 2 kids.
I appreciate that. Steve Solomon, voteSteveSolomon.com. Steve, best of luck.
June 11 to June 18, early voting, county council at large. You get 4 picks. Just choose me. Just one. Steve Solomon. Thanks, buddy.
The Washington Nationals just completed a 4-2 trip out west. The Nats in MLB's 2026 regular season are 35-34 with a run differential of +7. There's not a Nats fan on the planet who would not have signed up for all of this given the ultra-low expectations for this team this season. But what happened on Wednesday was brutal. An 11-10 walk-off loss at the San Francisco Giants, denying the Nats a 3-game sweep. This was a game in which the Nats blew a 9-1 eighth-inning lead and a 10-6 ninth-inning lead. This was a game that the Nats lost on a walk-off grand slam. This was a choke job of a loss. The Nats, at various points in the top of the 8th, had a win probability per Baseball Savant of 99.8%. Yes, 99.8%, and yet the Nats lost this game. And what lost the game for the Nats was their relief pitching, which was horrendous. 4 Nats relievers combined to allow 10 runs in 2 innings. The Giants scored 5 runs in the bottom of the 8th, and the Giants scored 5 runs in the bottom of the 9th. Paxton Schultz officially allowed 5 runs in 1 inning. He tossed a scoreless bottom of the 7th, despite issuing a walk and giving up a single, but he then was charged with 5 runs in the Giants' 5-run 8th, during which he gave up 2 home runs and a double and issued 2 walks. Orlando Revolta, he officially tossed a perfect inning as he faced 3 batters and got 3 outs, but he and that Giants' 5-run 8th allowed 2 inherited runners to score, including issuing a 1-out run-scoring wild pitch to cut the Nats' lead to 9-6. Gus Varland officially allowed 3 runs without recording an out. He and the Giants' 5-run 9th faced 3 batters and got no outs as he began the bottom of the 9th by giving up back-to-back doubles and then issuing a walk. And Nats manager Blake Butera then went to Mitchell Parker, who, as we have discussed, has not been good. And he again was not good. He officially allowed 2 runs without recording an out. He and the Giants' 5-run 9th faced 2 batters. He, to the first batter he faced, gave up an opposite field single by Jung-Hoo Lee through the left side of the infield on a 1-2 pitch to load the bases, and Parker then gave up a walk-off grand slam by Bryce Eldridge to right field for an 11-10 Nats loss. What a moment for Bryce Eldridge, who is from the Washington, D.C. area. He grew up rooting for the Nats. He went to James Madison High School in Vienna, Virginia. And yes, the Nats lost on a walk-off grand slam. Mitchell Parker now at the major league level in this regular season. 17 games, all in relief, 32 innings, ERA of 5.91, whip of 1.34. He has allowed 8 home runs in his 32 innings. The Nats bullpen was on fumes, but Mitchell Parker in that spot in this game was trouble, was bad news, and what ended up happening was really bad. Here was Blake Butera during his post-game session with reporters on Wednesday evening, and then you'll hear multiple follow-up exchanges.
Yeah, it hurts. When you have a lead like that going into the 8th and to lose the game the way we did, it definitely hurts. And these guys are hurting right now. And I told them, like, this one should sting. This will probably be our worst loss of the year. It's one of the worst losses I've been a part of. But at the end of the day, like, looking at the big picture to go on the road, first West Coast trip of the year, going to Arizona, a playoff team, coming here into this park, which isn't easy, and going 4-2 when easily we could have been 5-1. We got to look at the positives. This can happen, and at the end of the day, I want these guys to know we believe in each and every one of them, and we're going to flush it and be ready to go on Friday after the off day.
When you've got a bullpen that's obviously on fumes by the end of this game, what, if anything, can they do to try to get through that, getting out?
Yeah, at the end of the day, we want these guys to throw strikes and to attack. These guys swung the bats like I've never seen the last 2 innings of a game. But our bullpen's been really good lately, and at the end of the day, like, we're going to continue to trust those guys and ask them to attack hitters.
Was there any consideration of keeping Gus in, or was it just kind of you just saw what you saw from him? And I know he's pitched the previous 2 days, and or did you like that matchup with Mitch?
No, we wanted Gus to finish that game, but when you see the way those first 3-4 hitters went, like, we got to make a move there. We can't wait too long. With the lefties coming up like that, we just had to make a move. We couldn't keep going there. And like you said, Gus has pitched a lot for us lately. We were hoping that, he faced 3-4 batters at the end of the game, but he didn't have his best stuff today. And he'll come back and be ready to go on Friday and get back to being Gus.
Yeah, there was a lot to the Nats bullpen implosion in this game. I mean, you start with the bad outing by Paxton Schultz, then you go to the bad outing by Gus Varland. So the bullpen collapse was not all on Mitchell Parker, but he provided the exclamation mark with what happened in his outing, giving up that walk-off grand slam by Bryce Eldridge. And Mitchell Parker may well be the last guy on this Nats pitching staff who you want pitching in a big spot, and yet there he was pitching in a big spot in this game. Well, the thing about this 11-10 walk-off loss at the Giants on Wednesday is that there were so many positives for the Nats. The Nats starting pitcher in this game was Foster Griffin. He again was good. He allowed 1 run in 6 innings with 5 strikeouts versus no walks. He gave up 6 hits, which were a home run and 5 singles. He issued a wild pitch, but he threw a lot of strikes, 100 pitches, 72 strikes, just 28 balls. So Griffin in the bottom of the 6th gave up a 1-out solo homer by Matt Chapman to left center field on an 0-2 pitch to cut the Nats lead to 6-1. The homer went a projected 421 feet per Statcast, but Griffin otherwise did well, and he is doing well. Foster Griffin now for this regular season, 14 games, all starts, ERA of 3.46, whip of 1.09, and the Nats offense in this game was great, and this was despite a rare day off for shortstop C.J. Abrams. But the Nats in this game, 10 runs, 14 hits, which were 2 home runs, a double, and 11 singles, 1 walk, 6 for 11 with runners in scoring position, 5 for 5 on stolen bases as the Nats ran all over the Giants. The Nats in the top of the 6th scored 4 runs on 5 consecutive 2-out singles. The Nats got to Giants starting pitcher and former Nats prospect Robbie Ray. He officially allowed 5 runs in 5 2/3 innings. Yes, Robbie Ray, a name from your Nats past. The Nats on December 2nd, 2013 traded Ray, infielder/outfielder Steve Lombardozzi, and relief pitcher Ian Kroll to the Detroit Tigers for starting pitcher Doug Fister. The Nats' 2 home runs in this game were by James Wood and Curtis Mead. James Wood, as the Nats starting DH and number 1 batter, went 1 for 4 with a 2-run homer and a walk. He and the Nats' 2-run third had a 1-out opposite field 2-run homer to left center field for a 2-0 Nats lead. The homer went a projected 405 feet per Statcast. James Wood for this regular season now has an OPS of 941. Curtis Mead, he is the Nats starting third baseman and number 2 batter, went 2 for 5 with a solo homer and a single. Mead in the Nats' 1-run ninth had a leadoff full count homer to left field for a 10-6 Nats lead despite having been down in the count at 1.02. Mead for this regular season now has an OPS of 834. Dalen Lyle, he is the Nats starting left fielder and number 5 batter, went 4 for 5 with 2 RBI singles and 2 other singles, and he went 2 for 2 on stolen bases. His OPS for this regular season now is at 747. Luis Garcia Jr. came off the bench to pinch hit and play first base. He went 1 for 2 with an RBI double. Garcia in the Nats' 3-run seventh had a pinch opposite field RBI double off the left field wall for a 7-1 Nats lead. Now, the ball could have been caught by Giants left fielder Drew Gilbert, but the ball was not caught, and Luis Garcia Jr. now has an OPS for this regular season at 756. So much to like from the Nats in this game, but it ended up being a painful loss. No game for the Nats on Thursday, mercifully. Next up for them is a 6-game homestand beginning with a 3-game series against the Seattle Mariners at Nationals Park. The Nats have listed the following starting pitchers as probables for the series. Game 1 Friday evening at 6:45, Zach Littell. Game 2 Saturday afternoon at 4:05, Cade Cavalli. Game 3 Sunday afternoon at 1:35, Miles Michaelis. Look, choosing life insurance is tricky. Heck, life insurance as a topic can be uncomfortable, but Ethos makes getting life insurance fast and easy 100% online. You can get a quote in seconds, apply in minutes, and get same-day coverage. There's no medical exam. You just answer a few simple health questions. You can get up to $3 million in coverage. Some policies are as low as $30 a month. You'll get your lowest rate from Ethos' network of trusted carriers. And know this, Ethos has a rating of 4.8 out of 5 stars on Trustpilot with over 4,000 reviews. Take 10 minutes today to get covered with life insurance through Ethos. Get your free quote at ethos.com/Al Galdi. That's ethos.com/Al Galdi. Ethos.com/Al Galdi. Application times may vary. Rates may vary. Well, a much-needed win for the Baltimore Orioles. A 7-2 win over the Seattle Mariners at Oriole Park at Camden Yards on Wednesday evening in Game 3 of a 4-game series. The O's snapped a 4-game losing streak. They in MLB's 2026 regular season now are 32-37. The Mariners in this regular season now are an American League West best 36-33. More on the events in this game in moments, but this Craig Albornaz, Samuel Basallo situation is becoming troubling. So, for a third consecutive game, neither of the two guys who make up the Orioles' dynamic catching duo started. Adley Rutschman did not play for a third consecutive game due to left hamstring tightness. Samuel Basallo did not start for a third consecutive game due to a left wrist ailment. O's manager Craig Albornaz, during his post-game session with reporters this past Sunday afternoon, seemed to question the toughness of Basallo, saying that he needed to learn to play through pain. Albornaz, during his pregame press conference on Monday afternoon, revealed that Basallo is dealing with a, quote, bony growth, end quote, in the left wrist, and that has been bothersome for Basallo. Then Basallo, during a pregame session with reporters on Tuesday afternoon, pushed back on this idea of having to learn to play through pain. Then Albornaz, during his pregame session with reporters on Wednesday afternoon, got asked a bunch about this situation with Basallo. Then MASN Orioles analyst Jim Palmer on the MASN telecast of the game on Wednesday evening basically said that Albornaz is in the wrong here. Quote, if Basallo is able to play late in the ballgame, I'm surprised he's not in there, that's all. I don't think this is the time when you've lost 4 in a row to teach a lesson. I don't care how young you are, but that's just my opinion. End quote. Jim Palmer is the best, man. I love that he's never afraid to speak his mind. I guess you could be like that when you are the best pitcher in the history of the franchise. Look, we don't know what Craig Albornaz knows, so I'm not just going to rip him without knowing what he may or may not have had to deal with in terms of this Samuel Basallo situation. But I am not a fan of a manager publicly calling out a young star catcher to be tougher unless that really was like a last resort. Samuel Basallo was set up to be a franchise player for the O's for years to come. Maybe he does need to toughen up. I don't know. But was publicly embarrassing him the way to go? And if he right now is not starting as punishment, is that the way to go? Well, the O's in this 7-2 win over the Mariners at Oriole Park at Camden Yards on Wednesday evening were good offensively despite Adley Rutschman and Samuel Basallo not playing at all. But 7 runs, 11 hits, which were 2 home runs, 4 doubles, and 5 singles, 5 walks, 4 for 13 with runners in scoring position. Pete Alonso, as the Orioles starting first baseman and number 3 batter, went 2 for for 5 with a solo homer and a single. His OPS for this regular season now is at 768. Jackson Holliday, he is the Orioles starting second baseman and number 6 batter, went 1 for 4 with a grand slam. Holliday in the Orioles' 4-run 7th had a 2-out grand slam to right field for a 7-0 Orioles lead. His OPS for this regular season now is at 743. Good to see him doing better. The Orioles starting pitcher in this 7-2 win over the Mariners at Oriole Park at Camden Yards on Wednesday evening was Brandon Young, and he again was impressive. He tossed 7 scoreless innings with 5 strikeouts versus 2 walks, gave up just 2 hits, each of which was a single. He threw 88 pitches, 55 strikes, 33 balls. The Orioles' best starting pitcher in this regular season has been Brandon Young. Amazing but true. He wasn't even supposed to be in the rotation, but here we are with starting pitchers Chris Bassett, Zach Eflin, Dean Kramer, and Cade Povich all on injured lists. Brandon Young, 10 games, all starts, ERA of 3.04, whip of 1.24. This is a guy who the O's got via signing him to a minor league contract in June 2020. This is his age 27 season, and he's doing really well. And the Orioles relief pitching in this 7-2 win over the Mariners at Oriole Park at Camden Yards on Wednesday evening was mixed. The 2 Orioles relievers combined to allow 2 runs in 2 innings. Grant Wolfram allowed 2 runs in 2/3 of an inning, but Yadier Cano tossed 1 and 1/3 perfect innings with 2 swinging strikeouts. Cano is doing really well. He, for this regular season, 30 games, 22 and 2/3 innings, ERA of 2.38, whip of 0.79. Game 4 for the O's against the Mariners at Oriole Park at Camden Yards. Thursday night at 7:05, the O's have listed Kyle Bradish as their probable starting pitcher for the game. And that'll do it for you and me for now, but there's more to come. Friday's show, episode 1346, will have much more on the Washington Commanders. Also on Friday's show, I'll talk Baltimore Orioles. The O's are home to the Seattle Mariners Thursday night at 7:05 for Game 4 of a 4-game series. Have a great rest of your Thursday, and I'll talk to you on Friday.
I do fully expect this to be our most competitive camp that we've had, in going into year 3.